And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Dawg Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Harris Sereno. Alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley, Kobe Piers, back here on a Sunday evening, our last Sunday show of the season. We will be transitioning back to our one-show-a-week schedule with Wednesdays starting, I guess, this coming week. So our last Sunday show for, I guess, quite a little bit. Until we get football season back here up and running. Kind of sad. It lasts, the Sunday shows were around, we started them mid-year. So they were, kind of getting, they're fresh. There's something new we're trying, and we will bring them back for the season for sure. Absolutely. I think we enjoyed it, having that right after the game, 24-hour reaction show right afterwards. But with that being said, so yes, you will get two of us this week, two shows. You'll get tonight, and then you'll get Wednesday night, and then the one show week. You'll have to wait 7 full days before you see our faces again after that. Gentlemen, we have a action-packed show tonight. Just to give the people a general rundown of what we're doing, we're talking Carson Beck in the transfer portal. We're talking Georgia basketball, and yes, the return of the blind draft continues. I have a blind draft for Kobe and Dan tonight that I think is going to be a really good one. I'm excited for it. There are no stink balls. There's no dirt balls. Just 8 really good things to rank. I'm not going to reveal what or who or where, what it is just yet. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But gentlemen, we had a post-Top Dog Talk news dump Thursday and Friday this past week. Carson Beck goes back on his NFL draft declarations and enters the transfer portal. Let's start there. General reactions to just what I just said. Goes back on his NFL draft declaration and enters the transfer portal.
I'm going to let Dan start this one because this was kind of our mini Dan rant like about a week ago when he declared.
Absolutely. I mean, going back to my mini Dan rant, I have a standard for what a damn good dog is. And I said that at the time, I said that Carson Beck didn't fit that damn good dog mantra for me. I understand he did a lot of good things, but he never struck me as the type of guy that when he left Georgia would ever come back to Georgia, would support Georgia, would be out, all about Georgia. One of the references I used off of the team that we have currently would be a guy like Tate Ratledge. Everything about that guy screams University of Georgia. I mean, he's Georgia born, Georgia bred. When he's dead, he'll be Georgia dead. So, that's what I'm talking about. To me, that's a damn good dog. Guys, all about Georgia. Carson never really was about that. Yeah, all season long, joking or not, I kind of made references specifically to you, Harrison, that I thought him dating that girl was a problem. And you told me you didn't agree, and you didn't like my opinion, Harrison. You 100% didn't like my take. You didn't think it was fair. Come to find out, it was actually a much bigger thing than we thought. Him going to Miami doesn't bother me at this point. And let me tell you this. It's not a fact that he's not a good quarterback. I would never go there. I would never say that he's not a good quarterback. I just think that time has come, gone, and passed. And I think everybody was looking to move on. A fresh new start. And I guess you could kind of compare it to, the JT Daniels thing, right? JT Daniels extremely talented, but it was just time for, that table to be turned and him not to be here anymore. And I think, I just think it was one of those things. I think at the end of the day, is better for everybody that he's not here anymore. And to give somebody an opportunity. Listen, I think Gunnar has a chance to do some good things, but I'm really excited to see what Pug can do. And if he was here, none of those guys would have an opportunity. So, I just think it was time for him to move on. I'm not angry that he's gone, and I'm not angry that he transferred to Miami. I felt like it. Harrison, back me up. This is something that I heard and I came to you with a long, long time ago. And I got made fun of for even thinking that it was real. Not by you. You didn't make fun of me, but some other people did. And here we are.
Kobe, I was in a state of shock, even though I had prior conversations with Dan, who had seen it on social media floating out there. At that point, it sounded like rumors. But then it happened, and it's just like, wow, that really just happened.
Yeah, I think that, like you're saying, there's always been those thoughts in the back of your mind. I think the one that I kind of got on the rant with that has surprised me, and again, y'all can kind of correct me here if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've looked into this. You know, his current girlfriend, who I believe is Hannah Cavender, she is out of eligibility at the end of this basketball season, which will wrap up sometime in March. So what the shocking thing to me is all these people that were like, oh, it's Miami. Oh, it's Miami. It's got to be Miami. She's down there. She plays basketball there. It's Miami. But my thought process is when she finishes in March, it could have been anywhere. I think that's what, I guess that he's moving back to Florida. He's from Florida. A couple of those things, they definitely have a gap at quarterback position. But he's got big shoes to fill. I mean, you're talking about a Heisman finalist in Cam Ward that is probably going to be the number 1 or number 2, I think, overall draft pick in this year's draft. So, I mean, it's not like he's got an easy shoes to step into down there. Like you're saying, it's this era of NIL and transfer portal. I guess my thing is I can't blame the kid as far as a business decision on coming back and playing college football again. Because at the end of the day, it was kind of like I had talked about with some people about that. I could even see him coming back, and if his arm wasn't 100%, medically redshirting a year and then giving it again another shot. I guess at some point, guaranteed money from Miami, and rumor mill has it upwards of $4 million for the year, is all guaranteed money. He's going to get it no matter what, and they're not going to cut him. They're not going to make a 53-man roster cut. And all of a sudden he's sitting at the house going, man, I'm not playing football anymore because my elbow, I can't feel my fingers. I can't throw a football. I need a year. He's going to be at Miami. He's going to rehab at Miami. He's going to lift at Miami. Hopefully he's going to build some connections in the receiver room at Miami. And if he throws well in March, April, I've seen some, I think Pete Thamel said that, he'll start throwing again mid to late March. I don't know when the spring ball will align in Miami. For Georgia, it's like the second week in March till about the third or fourth week in April is typically our spring season. That would probably tell me he probably won't practice in the spring. But it is what it is. I think the biggest concern at this point is how much talent Miami's losing at the receiver position and kind of across the board for them to be able to repeat what they've done this year.
Yeah. On that note, just to kind of recap, I put in the notes here kind of the talking points of the story here from Pete Thamel that you mentioned there. Per Thamel sources, he was not going to be able to start throwing until March. And this decision, now I don't know if I believe this. Well, maybe a little bit. He changed his mind about the draft to instead into the portal 24 hours before he announced that decision to enter the portal. Also, what I found interesting, because I think this was the first question that was in everyone's mind, what was the draft grade that he got when he sent his, I guess, I forget, is it a letter? I don't know. Maybe Kobe knows a little bit more about what exactly the process is for the draft committee to get your grade back on that one. It might be an application for all I know. Sources told Pete Thamel that Beck was told he could go anywhere between rounds 1 through 3, which, with that uncertainty, has led to him saying he will return to college for his final year of eligibility. Guys, and I think that's the key point here. This is a guy that coming into the season was rumored to be the top quarterback in this upcoming draft class. He was going to go in the first round. He was going to play, at this high level for Georgia and potentially put Georgia in a position where they could win their third championship in 4 years. Well, not only did he kind of fall short on those expectations, but Georgia did as well. And I think that's important to point out. Carson Beck's 12 interceptions played as much of a role in maybe him having to come back, as did Georgia's maybe not holding up their end of the bargain in terms of their play from the supporting cast. Georgia led the FBS in drop passes this year with 36. Georgia's offensive line was kind of a revolving door due to injuries, and the performance, and it showed kind of in their performance. And like Kobe said, he's going to have a chance to go play. He's going to have a chance to prove himself again at Miami. This is nothing new for Miami. They did it with Cam Ward. They're trying to do it again. They're trying to find that success. I believe the initial reporting on Cam Ward's was he got $1.5 million to go to Miami last year. That's up to $4 million now in Carson Beck. And according to that same report from Thamel, they offered 3.5, I think it was, to the quarterback out of Washington State that ended up at OU, and he turned it down. So, and he also stated they were going to go after Quinn Ewers if he was interested.
I saw the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, and they compared this situation to Florida State, where Florida State went and got Jordan Travis, who was gosh almighty, he was incredible at Florida State. And then the next year they got DJU, and he was awful. They were trying to make it the same. It was funny. I'm sorry. That struck me as funny. Kobe, you had something to say.
Yeah, I think that as far as that goes, I'm very interested, confused. I don't know where that number has come from. Like, obviously, it's a real number. It's been reported enough that, he's making $4 million or more. But why? I guess if you're Miami, like, he had no power. He had no leverage. Like, it was either come to Miami or go to the draft and be a third-round draft pick. I think that you could have sold him a lot less. Maybe you were feeling nice. Maybe you were feeling, that you didn't want to get the rug swept out from underneath you. Money's not a problem at Miami. But like you're saying, I've seen some different people report that he was making in the $4 million range here in Athens. I just don't see why he should be making that same amount at Miami at this point in time. But, the other comment that to me was interesting in that Thamel report is that sources told him that, again, his comment is he wants to win. He's not coming back to get knocked out at the halftime of a conference championship game. I just find that funny at some point that he's just so obsessed with maybe how people view him. And I think that is feeding into part of this transfer, is he really cares about this image of, well, he was a part of 2 national championships at Georgia, but they weren't his national championships. He wasn't the quarterback. He doesn't feel like he did anything to deserve those national championships. I completely understand, I guess, at the quarterback position feeling that way. But I don't feel like that's not his SEC championship. He started every game of the regular season. He started half of that game. Yeah, we were behind when he gets hurt, but I don't feel like that's Gunner's SEC championship and just Gunner's SEC championship. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how y'all feel about that with him only playing. He only played one half. In a 13-game season, you're telling me because he played one half, he deserves for that to be his SEC championship game?
So I think, listen, I've been catching heat because I just feel this way. I've been around enough guys to know when a guy is, I can't use the word. Oh, I about said that. I can't say that. When a guy is overrun by the girl that he's with, overtaken, and I believe everything that you just said can be explained by having a girl who is a social media influencer. Like, what is her objective? Everything in life is she wants people to look at me, pay attention to me. And I feel like that has completely rubbed off on Carson. Pay attention to me, look at me, tell me I'm pretty. And it's absolutely, Kobe. That's 100% it. But listen, if you go back to who he was last year, right? He was really good. Did he play his best in the Alabama game? No. Okay, whatever. But like, there was no distraction, no anything. And then all of a sudden starts dating, a person. And, you talked about her being out of eligibility. First of all, we have no idea anymore because they give these Fugazi years where they're just like, oh, fuck it. One more year. Just imaginary year of eligibility. Here you go. You can have it. And she brings a lot of money into the program because she's got attention. But she's not leaving Miami because Miami, you can take your clothes off year round and take bikini pictures and get famous. And that's right up her alley. That's what she does. She's more concerned about social media than she is about on the court. And I really started to feel that way about Carson, is that he's more concerned about that. And one other thing that I kind of take umbrage with is, and this isn't a shot at you, Kobe, but everybody keeps saying Miami has unlimited supplies of money. That's 100% patently untrue. Miami struggles with money constantly. That's why they had the Nevin Shapiros, they had the Uncle Luke, guys like that, because their alumni and their boosters don't give money to the school. Like it's like they're dried up. They can't afford to build a new stadium. That's why they don't have a stadium on campus. It's a private school, and that's one of the biggest disconnects. Is the alumni don't actually like the football team because when you think of Miami, what do you think? Right? Miami is a private medical school where there is a bunch of like crazy smart people with doctorates, and like it is, like Ivy League level shit. And that's not the perception that the football team gets it. So there's been always a massive disconnect between the alumni, the actual alumni at Miami, and the football program, and they're not well funded. So that's one of the things that I keep hearing. And like, again, Kobe, this is not a shot at you, bro. But I keep hearing all these people say Miami's got unlimited supplies of money. That is 100% untrue. They have a couple boosters that want to buy people for sure, but the school itself doesn't have money.
I'll have to go back and watch that to see if I said unlimited money. I think I just said they overpaid for him, but I'll have to go back and listen.
No, I'm not saying you said that, but there are people out there who have said unlimited money, and that is not true.
The only unlimited money is located in Texas and in Oregon right now, in my opinion. Correct. Those are the only three programs: Texas, Texas A&M, and Oregon. I feel like there is no bottom to the well.
Oh, which one is T-Boo Pickens? Is that Oklahoma State?
Yeah.
Yeah. So them two, but they don't spend.
I think it's important to also recognize in this situation, like, let's not pin all of this on the girlfriend. Obviously Carson's his own person, has to make his own decision. There's a lot of frustrations on both sides. I mean, CBS said in their report from Chris Hummer, Matt Zenitz, Brendan Marcello that yes, according to their sources, teammates had become frustrated with Hannah Cavender, and she apparently became a distraction for the team. We won't go against that. I can definitely see how that became a distraction and all that. But it is important. They have to make his own decision. If he wasn't going to be a first-round draft pick, I really can't blame him for going back to school, because you're talking about with $4 million, he's making more than what Brock Purdy makes as a starting quarterback in the NFL, base salary-wise, and 1 year at Miami. That's crazy. That is crazy, and that's just the world we live in. I mean, it's right on market with what Duke gave Dorian Mensah, the quarterback at, I believe it was Tulane this offseason, to go over there. He got a 2-year, $8 million deal per reports from CBS to go over there to Duke.
Hey, we have some Miami fans popping up in there. Look at this. These guys. Here we go. Glad you found the show. Tell us something about Miami. Tell us about all that money you got.
Hey, I want to pull this up. I pulled this up. It's from Chris Marler over on Twitter. I thought this was a great point in terms of how Carson could perform over there at Miami, especially just looking at the top 25 teams. Georgia played 6. Miami played 2. Top 50 defenses. 8 are in the SEC. 1 was in the ACC. He put together this graphic showing off kind of Carson's stats by the numbers in terms of ranked versus unranked. I mean, guys, you look over here on the right versus the unranked teams, 68.8% completion percentage, 286.3 passing yards per game, 8.4 passing yards per attempt, 21 touchdowns, 5 picks. I'd put that right up there with probably about any starting quarterback in terms of unranked opponents. It's the ranked opponents where Beck had struggled this past year. Completion percentage drops to dang near sub 60%. Yards per attempt drops to 7.1. Passing drops nearly 40 yards. Passing touchdown drops to 7, and interceptions drop to 7 as well. I guess just out of curiosity, Kobe, you brought up, obviously, they're losing playmakers from this past season, just like Georgia's going to be losing stars from this past year. I mean, what are we expecting in terms of numbers for Carson Beck? I personally expect he'll probably go over to Miami and light it up.
Yeah, they'll go up. I mean, he'll have a better year this upcoming year, and it'll be because a combination of just like giving him more freedom in the offense too. I think that's a big thing at Georgia. Is that you have to play within our system, and our system is more of a run-based, slow, methodical pro-style system. And I think Miami, if given the opportunity, is going to let him kind of take the lid off things and throw the ball around. And he's got the arm to do that. As long as that rehab process goes well for him. I mean, he has a cannon of an arm. He can throw into tight windows. He can throw the ball down the field. Every now and again, I think he has a little bit of problems sailing the ball. He also sometimes has some problems being too confident in that arm. I think that's where a lot of those interceptions came from in the middle of the season is, he's trying to fit it in tighter windows than maybe is necessary. It'll be interesting to see. He kind of comes out of the gate with Notre Dame, if I remember right, looking at their schedule. So kind of a tough challenge for him to start. And then they kind of go into a couple of unranked group of 5, I think, opponents. I think I saw a couple people on there that be a couple easy games for him to kind of get his feet wet. I think a lot of it is just going to be on the rehab process. Brock Purdy had this injury. He came back within a year. You just never know. I think that's always the toughest thing is everybody heals differently. And I think that if you're telling me, like, if a pitcher has this injury, they typically can come back and throw harder when they finish rehabbing. For a pitcher, though, that's like a 16-month rehab. For a football quarterback, I've seen that it's closer to like 7 to 8 months full rehab. I have no reason to think he won't be throwing harder or as hard as he did before. I think the biggest thing will be I would expect Miami to make a splash in the spring portal for at least one big-time playmaker on the outside. I know they have some good weapons that'll be there, a couple high recruits that they've recruited over the years. But I feel like if you make a splash with this big of a quarterback, you're going to make a pretty big attempt to get one, well-known receiver if they're willing to come and play.
Troy OT's here. Miami's finally spending since Mario arrived. We used to be cheapskates, not anymore. My issue with the program is I'm not sold on Mario's game day coaching. We're still not at Georgia's level. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Obviously, the game day management against Georgia Tech the other year comes to mind in terms of Cristobal. The one thing I think we can all, I guess, agree on is Cristobal has done a solid job, whether it's been at Oregon or Miami, in terms of recruiting. Selling yourself to a quarterback in the portal and even high school recruiting has become harder just because it is a lot more focused on brand value and all that. He's gotten Cam Ward and Carson Beck in back-to-back years now out of the portal. Dan, let's talk about what this means for Georgia before we move on to, I guess, the segment that we haven't talked basketball much, and we're going to get to that in a minute in here for Georgia basketball.
All right, well, hold on. Before we do that, let me clarify one thing. All right, so it was under Donna Shalala, I think that was her name. I didn't realize that she wasn't the president anymore, but under Donna Shalala, one of the things that they talked about was the underfunding of the athletic department. So never said that the boosters don't have money. I'm saying the athletic department was underfunded. So if the new president, I don't even know the new president's name, but the new president, if they're funding at a massive level, then they are. But listen, there are plenty of clips to go back to where when they were under Donna Shalala, she wouldn't, to your point, she wouldn't spend on the athletic department. So I'm not 100% off base. I may be incorrect at the moment, but I wasn't 100% off base. But anyway, you want to talk about what with Carson?
Let's hit this point real quick. I'm curious. Jorge Blanco says Miami plays Notre Dame and Florida within the first 4 games at home. Jorge, Troy Ortiz, any other Notre Dame fans here, we're curious. Let us know what y'all's expectations are for Carson. Get in any questions y'all have about Carson Beck. We like to be a fan-friendly show, viewer-friendly. So if y'all want to interact and all that, please do. We appreciate y'all for being here. In terms of Georgia's perspective on this, we talked about it last week. Obviously, the Sugar Bowl did not guarantee anything in terms of the starting quarterback, but it did, I think, put a lot of belief, reinforce a lot of belief that Gunner could be the starting quarterback here at Georgia. Kobe, I mean, what are your expectations in terms of what this means for Georgia going forward?
Yeah, I think that I've talked about it all towards the end of the season, and poor Dan. They're after you, Dan.
That's fine. I wasn't wrong.
You shouldn't have kicked the bee's nest, Dan. I think that as of right now, as of today, January 12th, when we're recording this, as long as Mike Bobo is the offensive coordinator come football season, which all indications are looking that he will be, which is I'm okay with. I think Gunner will be the starting quarterback come the fall. I think it's his job to lose. Pending anything just crazy happens between the spring and fall camp where Pug just really makes some leaps and bounds. And I think we saw some good things in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, I don't think we lost because of his game plan. I think we lost because inability to protect him, inability to run the ball. I mean, we have always been a run the ball and throw off play action pass team as long as Kirby's been here. So that inability to run the ball led to making him make some throws that maybe we shouldn't have to be asking him to make. I mean, it's the guy's first start since he was a senior in high school. I think that's hard for people to remember. It's been 3 years since he's made that start. So it's going to be a transition period for him. Luckily, this year, we start with 4 really easy games right out the gate. That's a big deal for a young quarterback. He's not going to have to play Clemson game 1 in Atlanta. He's not going to have to, play this non-conference opponent that is a top 10, top 15 opponent. I mean, he's going to be playing guys that the whole roster is less than what Georgia typically, maybe even their scout team level is. So I think that'll be big for next season and seeing kind of who he is and what we have around him.
Our friend Juan Daniels. Oh, my bad, Dan.
The great Juan Daniels makes an appearance. I love it. Hey, Juan. But listen, one of the things that keeps getting said is young quarterback too. He'll be fourth year out of high school next year, and he's got the Notre Dame game under his belt. Right? Now, he didn't win it, but he got to play it, and then he got to play a half against Texas. Which, I mean, you have 2 just ridiculously talented defenses that he was able to play. So to Kobe's point, you give somebody like Gunner an entire offseason to make it his team, and then having that experience of playing 2 behemoth defenses, and then you get to start out the schedule with what we got. He should be playing at a level, I think you're going to find out really quick, right? Is he capable of playing at the level we need him to play for? I think we saw in a very small window that he is capable. But the other thing that you have to consider is that we have spring and summer for a guy like Puglisi who wasn't 100% healthy to be 100% healthy and have an opportunity to compete. Now, I think that given the fact that Bobo has such a great relationship with Gunner, you're going to have to take that job from him. And I'm talking about it's going to have to be you are so significantly better than he is to take that job. Because if it's even close, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt. And I think that kind of goes back to the Bobo relationship where
Kobo needs to be the nickname. That needs to be the nickname. The Kobo.
So, Bobo would really have to just absolutely shit his pants to be fired at the University of Georgia, right? I know people think he's absolutely god-awful, and I get that. But Bobo is not god-awful. Is he maybe as good as Monken is? Maybe not. I mean, that's my opinion. I think Monken's the best offensive coordinator we've ever had, probably will ever have. All right, hold on. Wait, Juan's in here. And listen, you don't understand. Juan does not come out of hiding very often. So, Juan, who are you talking about? Are you talking about Bobo or are you talking about Gunner?
He's talking about Gunner. He would not say that about.
That was his teammate.
It's good for him, Bobo.
Yeah, I really think if you give Pug an offseason of being completely healthy and if you give him a fair shot, I think that guy has everything you could possibly want. And I read this somewhere today, and I wish I could give them credit because it was pretty poignant where they talked about Ryan Puglisi was handpicked by Todd Monken to run his offense.
Juan Daniels came back here, Dan. Gunner's better suited at a Arkansas or Mississippi State.
Well, if he doesn't win the job in spring, he might be headed there.
Yeah. I'm excited for a true maybe UCF. Hey, I like how kind of the schools he mentioned here. I mean, you think about Arkansas, at least under Sam Pittman, they like that athletic quarterback. They like having somebody not as good as an athlete as a KJ Jefferson is, but he's, Gunner's more power than speed when it comes to the quarterback run game. Again, another KJ Jefferson school in UCF, although Gus Malzahn is no longer there over there at UCF. He's now at Florida State as the offensive coordinator. Yeah. I wanted to hit this real quick before we move on. Jorge Blanco, Miami fan, said, "We are excited for Beck coming to Miami. He provided he heals properly. The offensive line will be solid as our running backs. If Beck is healthy, we are Gucci." It should be an interesting year. This is a homecoming for Beck. This is his final year of eligibility as far as we know. Provided, like Dan said, the NCAA doesn't allow people to stay in it for life, which at this point they're trending towards with the amount of extra years they'd be handing out at this level. But from a Georgia perspective, I think on both sides, and this just to sum this up, and y'all can disagree, and I'll hear your case, but I think it's a win-win for both sides. A win for Carson Beck. He gets away from maybe the distractions that were here at Georgia. He gets to go closer to home. He gets to be closer to his family. This is a kid that grew up right outside Jacksonville. He gets to go play in his home state and try and boost his draft spot back to where it was coming into this year. Meanwhile, Georgia gets to move on. Georgia gets to try and find their next national championship caliber quarterback. They're trying to find that here, whether that's Gunner, whether that's Puglisi, whether that's Montgomery. They're going to try and start to find that. And I think the most interesting part is I think Georgia's offense will go back to what it was pre-Carson Beck. It felt this year, and Kobe, Dan, if y'all disagree, let me know. This was the most quarterback-centric offense it felt like at times this year than it's ever been under Kirby Smart. And I think that's a product of just everything around, the run game not being there consistently. Sometimes the passing game wasn't there consistently. It was just like J.D. Piquel said, there was no consistent identity with the offense. And I think that's where, now that they're moving on to maybe a more athletic quarterback, someone who's going to have to use his legs more, that's going to be more of an option. They'll go back to what we saw, maybe a little bit less quarterback-centric, a little bit more run-heavy, as we've seen in the past from Georgia's offense. Gentlemen, anything else to add before we wrap up and move on to the basketball segment of the night?
Yeah, I just kind of toss this in here. I think it's hard to create identity when you don't have the same starting 11 constantly playing. I think that's been the biggest thing this year. And I do feel at times that, the scapegoat has been Carson, and there have been some issues with people pointing the finger at him. But, it was a rotating line. All 5 linemen were rotating up until the very end of the season. We didn't have, I don't think, the same 5 starters at line more than 2 games all year without them kind of trying to play musical chairs to see who was playing the best. It's just tough. Trevor Etienne gets hurt. You're kind of playing rotating door running back. You can't run the ball. You can't block to run the ball. And then you can't always pass block. And then when you do pass block, you're having trouble catching the ball. I mean, you just start looking around and go, well, what's the offense supposed to do? If we can't run block and we can't run the ball, and when we can pass the ball, we can't catch the ball, you're going to be stagnant. And that's what the offense was at times. It was stagnant. What's crazy is other times it fired on all cylinders. In Tuscaloosa that night in the second half, it fired like a machine that I didn't think anybody could stop. And then it would play against Kentucky. And then it scored 13 points at Kentucky. And you're like, where do we kind of fall? And as far as for Carson, I hope he heals well. Me personally, I hope it kind of reminds me of the situation with Bo Nix getting out of Auburn, going to Oregon, going somewhere where maybe the fan base isn't as hard on him. I mean, I say that. Miami fans, I think, are going to be very hard on him. He's going to be following up one of the best quarterbacks to ever play at the University of Miami.
Just like he did here at Georgia.
Yeah, it just doesn't get a lot harder than that. Hopefully he finds some success like Bo found out at Oregon. I think that if he could take anything away from some of the things that Bo had to say when he went out to Oregon, is that he kind of quit putting as much pressure on himself about his legacy and just went out and played the game of football and enjoyed and loved playing the game of football again. I think that's the best thing for Carson Beck. I think that through some vibes, if you will, I feel like he's just not having fun playing football as much. And at the end of the day, it's a game. It's a kid's game. It's a man's game, but it is still a game. You got to have fun doing it. You got to enjoy what you're doing, and you can't have so much pressure on you that you're just miserable all the time. That's just that's the burnout part where you just feel like it's your job. And when you get paid $4 or $5 million, it really does start to feel a lot more like a job.
Well, he didn't do himself any favors by putting himself out there with the Lamborghini and all that other stuff. But the one position in the game of football where if you're not having a good time, if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to be successful as the quarterback position, because the quarterback position requires so much work. I mean, you have to know everything. You have to study the film. You have to know your entire offense. You have to know every defense. You have to know all the coverages. You have to know all the assignments, all the shifts, all the audibles, it is a mountain load of work. And if you don't love it, if you absolutely don't love it, man, that's like torture. I mean, imagine writing a paper that you really don't want to write, and it's 7 pages long. Man, that is the longest damn 7 pages in your life if you hate the subject. But if you love it, if it's something that you enjoy, like Harrison, you write about football and you love it. You absolutely love it. And those 7-8 pages come out of you like water. It's just they just flow. But if you hate it, man, it's just a forced situation. And there were so many times this year where you saw his face and it just looked like it was stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it definitely contributed to what we saw earlier in the year where he was pressing a little bit, trying to do more than what was asked of him, and it got him in trouble at times. And once he went back to being, trusting a little bit more in the offense, trusting in the guys around him, he got better, and the offense got a little bit better. I mean, I put it in the show notes here, Dan, and we talked about this at length. Good God, it felt like an eternity. It was a 6-game stretch where he threw 12 interceptions. And those were some rough games. I mean, there's I think 2 or 3 games within that 6-game stretch where he threw 3 interceptions. Georgia only lost 1 of those, believe it or not. But he closed out the year in the final 3 games with 11 touchdowns and interceptions. And heading into that SEC championship game, it felt like Georgia was kind of hitting whatever stride they're going to be able to hit at that point in the year. And while they didn't exactly show they were hitting the stride in the first half against Texas in the SEC championship game, once Carson went down and Gunner came in, you saw that team rally around Gunner and just played like, hey, we're not going to lose this game. We're going to go out here and do our best to win it. Anyways, I wanted to hit these 2 comments here from Juan Daniels. By the way, do y'all know Juan Daniels is up there on the top 10 list for Georgia in all-time receiving yards?
Tell him, Juan. I'm pretty sure he's number 11 now. I'm pretty sure last year.
Hold on, wait.
Yep.
So this is something that was funny. Go look at the names that are in front of him, and then subtract all the guys that played after him, and look where he was when he left. So, you can say he's 11, but he's number 1 in my heart. Juan.
Hell yeah, number 1 in our heart, number 11 on the record book. Juan said the rotation of skill positions will continue to be the downfall of UGA. Every team in college football and pros has consistent. There's 2 guys. There's 0 chemistry with all of the rotation. Hey, we might have to get Juan on to talk about that just from a receiver perspective. The closest thing we got to it on the show are the 2 gentlemen here with me.
Not receivers.
But maybe they can. Kobe, you've been in that locker room more recently than anybody that we know. Have you ever heard something similar to that? Like, what was obviously players are going to get frustrated when you take them out. Like any good competitor is going to get man, keep me in, coach. But have you seen that kind of affect receivers play in your time there at Georgia?
Yeah, I think that my argument to Juan, and we could discuss it more if Juan was here in person, would be this year, if I'm Juan, who is that guy that he's thinking can play every down receiver? Who's the guy that can continuously generate separation on the outside, win their one-on-ones, catch the ball consistently, and block on perimeter blocking for runs? I'm not sure we have a guy that is that guy all the time. I think that's a big reason why we have to rotate. I think that you look at somebody like a Kearis Jackson, a Marcus Rosemy-Jackson, those are the guys I'm thinking of, even like an A.D. Mitchell. Those are the guys that they're going to block their nuts off when they don't have the ball, and they have the ability to win their one-on-ones consistently, and also are very sure-handed. I think the biggest issue that we've had recently with some of our skill positions is that they do one of those things extremely well. They either block really well, they either separate really well, or they either catch really well. And then every once in a while you have somebody that does two of those three things, but we don't really have a receiver that does all three of them consistently. I think that's where your rotation comes in, is I have to rotate this guy out, because if we run a run play his way, he's a liability in the perimeter blocking game. Or it's 3rd and 5. I got to have this first down. I've got to rotate somebody in that I believe can win this one-on-one. Again, I'd love to hear Juan's take on it. Obviously, an all-time great. That's just a man that is watching comparatively the receiver room this year to, say, 3 years ago. Even George Pickens was a hellacious blocker on the perimeter.
Their whole mixtape's George Pickens blocking in that run game. I love the George Pickens highlight blocking tape. I don't know many receivers that do have a highlight blocking tape. Speaking of a transition period over a 3-year span, Dan, does Georgia have a basketball team now? It's
Georgia
basketball
does
season
have
now.
a basketball season. Listen, Georgia has a great basketball season or team right now. You can go ahead, just take me off this private. We can have a conversation, bro. I don't need to go solo screen. Look, one of the things that we kept hearing is that Georgia wouldn't support a basketball team. And one of the things that I kept saying was that Georgia was starving for a basketball team. All you had to do is give them a winner. And, you should support. No, smart people don't support bad teams. That's not a good fan. You're not a good fan if you support a crappy product. You don't support it, and it either goes away or they make it better. And in this case, Josh Brooks has made a concerted effort to improve every single product that Georgia puts out on the field, right? So it doesn't matter what the sport is. Josh Brooks is making an effort to make sure that every single program has what they need to be successful. And Georgia's basketball absolutely is. I think all right, so let's take this back a couple of years, if you'll just stay with me for just a second. Is a couple of years ago, we went and got probably the most electric, just high-profile guy you could possibly get, Ant Edwards, right? We got him to stay home. I don't know what it cost. NIL didn't exist back then. I don't care. We know it cost something. But we got him to stay home. But the problem was that they didn't build a roster around him. They didn't have the ability to build that roster up to the point where it could be successful. And then also a guy like Anthony Edwards, outside of Dominique Wilkins, you could make an argument the best player to ever play at the University of Georgia. But he is a ball-dominant player and a volume guy. And what that does a lot of times is it causes the rest of the team to stand and watch. And they get lazy and they don't rebound. If you think about these other programs that have guys like Anthony Edwards, okay, like, for example, if you were to take Anthony Edwards, allow him to play the exact same style that he plays right now, but do it at Kentucky, he's surrounded by 5-star guys. So it's fine. It's not a big deal because everybody else is really good. But if you put a guy like that on the team without talent and they're standing around and watching, a 5-star wouldn't stand around and watch. It wouldn't happen that way. You got to look at a guy like Cooper Flagg up there at Duke, right? Really super sensational guy, but he's surrounded by guys that are equally as talented. What happened here at Georgia is they went and got a guy who is a very quiet superstar in Asa Newell. He is willing to do all – he is he is a unicorn. He is the one thing that you don't find anywhere. He is an ultra talented superstar that will do all the things that the other superstars don't want to do. He will play defense at an incredibly high level. He will rebound at an incredibly high level. He will pass the ball. He will play. He will get in passing lanes. He does all those things. He will share the basketball. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands every single play to be a contributor. And then if he's not getting the ball, instead of pouting and sulking, he will work his ass off on the offensive glass to get a rebound and a putback. And we saw that in the Oklahoma game where there was kind of a lull in the game. The score was, I think it was a 1 or 2 point game. And then he gets two within a very short span and won opportunities on the offensive end because he got a rebound, put it back in. And those are things that go missed by the average fan. And he just is incredibly talented. But they've also surrounded him by a bunch of really talented guys. And that's what they failed to do the first time. You have a starting lineup of Asa Newell, R.J. Godfrey, Blue Kane, Demery Jr., and Lawrence, and a really rounded group. And then they really play three off the bench, which is Santos Sorrell and Deshane Montgomery, who just became eligible recently, and then LaFew, who's a shooter. It's a really well put together team, Harrison, and I think it's the first time in a long time where this team can compete with anybody. I'm not going to say that they're going to win the national title. But this is a 25-win team. This team can easily get to 25 wins, I think.
I guess I love that you say that, Dan, because I think the best thing you can do for a program is enjoy the highs and enjoy the fact that they're building and not to have these aspirations of like, man, Final Four, here we come. Listen, this is a basketball program that would like to make the NCAA tournament at the end of the season.
Correct.
That is definitely goal number one. And I think the best thing that kind of started this whole process is, a really good run to end basketball season last year and then some big additions to this team. It has Georgia fans believing. And what I remember the most about Georgia basketball in my time here, and we saw some stinkers of some years, is in that Kentucky game, they were up 10. Kentucky brings it back to, I think, 3, and then Georgia responds and pushes that lead back up to 10 plus again. I think that was the big thing that we've seen under past regimes of, you come out on fire in the first half and you just kind of hold on instead of being aggressive, and you just see that lead kind of fade. I think that was a big thing in both these games. That you kind of took that lead and you kept that lead and you constantly applied pressure on the other side. And that's just good basketball, and it's a good way to win at home when you have the crowd on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if this has been talked about enough, and I think Dan might have even told me about it when it happened this offseason. I don't know, and I haven't been in the arena just yet in terms of seeing a SEC conference game at Stegeman. Dan, you've been there. You've been to several this year so far. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of Georgia moving the student section closer to the court? Because, I mean, it looks on TV and sounds like a real home court advantage. And I know that's because obviously Georgia has a winner now and they're winning a lot more. But the atmosphere has greatly improved just seemingly with that move.
So the only thing I don't like about where it's currently placed, and you're right, it is closer to the floor, but it's not behind the goal. And if you look, and look, at Duke, it's on the side, but it's also, they have a lot of students and crazy people behind the goals. And I think the second half, so like the visitor side of the floor behind the goal would be an amazing place for the student section. But yeah, it just in general, Harrison, I will tell you the atmosphere inside the building is completely different. And they redid the floor, and the floor looks really cool. I think it's a great aesthetic change. They've been working hard to upgrade the building. I will tell you the seats that I sit in when I sit with one of my friends is a little narrow. I got a big butt, and I can't. It's kind of hard to get up and down. Kind of get stuck in the seats because we sit kind of like right where the seats are starting to turn, like wrap around. But the one thing that hasn't been completed yet that's coming is they are going to make the video board that entire wall. You've seen, I don't know if you've seen, you can maybe, Harrison, you could share the link to it if people haven't seen it, if you can find it. Georgia is going to take one of the ends, and that ribbon where it's like right now it's got like players' faces on it and stuff like that. It's going to be the largest video board in college basketball. And I think when that happens, it's going to be really crazy. It sounds to me like they did upgrade the sound system a little bit, because when I went to a game last year, it was either last year or the year before, the audio inside that arena was not great, but it's pretty clear as a bell now. And then they've kind of added some things, and correct me if I'm wrong if there's any other Georgia basketball fans listening, but they do this thing now where when a guy makes a three, we've all heard the 4-3, the stuff like that. The Hawks game and other things. But he does this thing where, like if LaFew hits a three, he'll be like LaFew for 1, and then the students go 2, 3, like a count, like a wrestling count or something. That's new to me. I hadn't heard that in the past. They're doing a lot of interactive things with the fans. The one thing, I guess what I'm saying is they are going out of their way to make it a better fan experience, which is great. But it doesn't mean a hill of beans if the product on the floor doesn't match. And the product on the floor, 100%. Yes. See, that is what it's going to look like in the corner. And that is going to be insane when that is done. That is going to be absolutely beautiful.
I don't think this picture does it justice just quite, because it just looks like, hey, they just pasted a photo on it. But I can't wait to see it. Like in person once they actually get it installed, because I do think it's going to do a lot more justice than even that shows. It's going to be 6,000 square feet, and it's going to make Stegman Coliseum absolutely amazing. More amazing than it's been this year. Dan, and real quick before we move on to the blind draft, which I am super super excited to get to. I think y'all are going to like it. A great way, and this I think shows more than anything else that Georgia is committed to winning in basketball, was this decision by Josh Brooks and that Georgia athletic department. After they beat Kentucky and Georgia did not storm the court, Josh Brooks took the $25,000 that would have went to the SEC league office if they stormed the court and has given it back to the student section as part of their promos. That's awesome. I don't know if this is popular. I don't know if that's being done pretty often here in around college sports. But to see that happen publicly it is amazing, and shows that Georgia is committed to trying to be better at basketball. And hey, they are at this point. They're 14-2 to start the year. One of the best starts they've had. They're off to the best start heading into the Ole Miss game in like 95 years, I believe it was.
They have the best record that they've had since 2002, and that's the last time they had a win in the NCAA tournament.
So this is the best start since 1931.
Whew. None of us were alive. Shocking.
Juan might have been, if Juan's still watching.
We started talking about basketball. He checked out.
Yeah, he gone. I'm surprised the Miami fans are still here. But we do appreciate you for showing our man Dan some love in the comments. Hey, anytime you interact with us, whether it's negative or positive, we'll take it. We appreciate y'all for being here. Miami fans, we appreciate y'all for interacting and let us know your thoughts on the Carson Beck transfer. We're certainly intrigued by that one. We'll be looking forward to seeing how next year plays out. Gentlemen, let's get into a blind draft. Dan, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and have you share the screen for the Google Doc, and I will pull up my list. So today's blind draft, for those who are new, which it appears we have quite a few new people, a blind draft is an idea we got from Tate Ratledge and Riley Godey, two friends of our friend Kobe Pierce over here on the show. And the blind draft is we come up with a new topic every week. We do one, and basically the goal is you are having to rank whatever it is. Whatever someone's, in this case for this week, I'm picking the topic. Dan and Kobe don't know what it is, don't know what it's about. They just have to rank whatever without knowing what comes next. So today's topic for the two gentlemen, we'll do this side by side just like we did last week, gentlemen, is best quarterbacks of the college football playoff era. So this is strictly quarterbacks who played in the college football playoff, started a game in the college football playoff. Some of these have started multiple games. Some of these have only won but one game, or some have won multiple. One hasn't even won one, but played in one, and I thought, hey, it's an electric player and needs to be on the list. So this is not going to be easy, boys, because I didn't give y'all a single dirt ball. Like, all of these I've put on here for a reason, because I think, hey, if we're talking top quarterbacks or maybe performances, they probably going to belong somewhere on this list.
So this is 14 years, right?
This is all college football playoff.
Okay.
I will start. We're going to start with a hot one, and this is where it's going to get interesting. The first like three are going to be really hard. I'm going to start it right now.
Can I preface this? Can I go ahead and just let everybody know that Dan is probably one of the worst spellers in the history of the world. So when you see me trying to type in names, do not crap on me.
I don't think any of the names are. I think you might go 100 for 100 on these. Deshaun Watson. Dan, we'll start with you for this one, and then we'll rotate.
All right. So I will say that Deshaun has gotten a lot of negative publicity, and you have to remember who he was when he left college. So if I'm going to say Deshaun Watson before he left college, I'm going to say 5.
Kobe, what do you say, sir?
I'm trying to think kind of how you did this last time. Like, yeah, he played in 2 national championships. He won 1 national championship in one of the best walk-off plays possibly in college football championship history. I'm with Dan. I'm not really sure where you're going with all this. I think considering all that's happened, and I know that a couple of these guys will have won at Heisman, I think I'm going to stick him also at 5 and just copy Dan for this one. It felt like a good, safe place to put him.
Number 2, the second player on this list. So we have Kobe and Dan both putting Deshaun Watson at 5. The next player is Joe Burrow.
Perfect. This is going to be a quick and easy one for you, Dan. That's going right in the 1 spot for me.
Yeah, I am 100%. I'm with you. It's Joe Burrow. I mean, yeah, he's number 1.
You know, I probably should have mixed these up a little bit better, because now the number 1 spot's taken, and I could have had y'all just in fear of who's going to be there. So that's my fault. But the next few will be where it gets interesting. Baker Mayfield. Dan, you're first on this one.
So Baker Mayfield was. I like Baker a lot, and he was a pretty. I think I'm going to go Baker at 4.
And this was the player I mentioned that did not win a playoff game, but was just so like controversial and electric that just had to be on the list, in my opinion. Kobe?
Yeah, I'm trying to like race through my head of other playoff quarterbacks just to like try to give myself an opportunity.
This is where it gets hard because you don't know who's coming.
Well, I think I'm with Dan again. When I think about your list of like, I think he's either 3 or 4 for me. But if I take into account the fact that he did not win a single playoff game, but you know, I think of some other guys that could be coming that I would probably put below him. I'm trying to think who I could justify putting above him in like a run in the playoffs. I'm going to be different than Dan. I'm going to put him at 3. Just to put a little bit bigger squeeze on it.
Kobe, you will start this next one as Dan types that in. Stetson Bennett.
2. That's an easy one.
I have 3 available. I'll go with 3. I love Stetson. I'm holding out hope for a name. And if he doesn't get said, then I'll look stupid. But, listen, I don't think that's disrespectful to put Stetson at 3. And part of that, too, and I won't speak for Kobe, but for me, putting Stetson that high is the fact that he won back-to-back national championships and he's ours.
Yeah. And I think what makes this fun is there is no set criteria for how y'all rank these. Obviously, you don't know who comes next. So you're having to go out on a limb and say, hey, I'm going to take this guy over the rest of the field. And both y'all look at, both y'all may have your different criteria in terms of how you're viewing these guys. You may dock Baker Mayfield for not winning a game, whereas somebody may not. May look at him for his Heisman.
I look at so far, and obviously we'll get into it maybe later. We will. We'll get into it later. We'll defend it later. What's next?
Yeah.
Next one. Ooh, who do I want to give y'all next? All right, we'll give him this one next. Jameis Winston. Won his championship in the non-playoff era, but did make the playoffs in the first year.
You want this one covered? Or you want me to go?
I think it's Dan's turn to go first.
It's your turn to go. Don't take mine, Dan.
I'm about to sneeze.
God bless you.
Sorry, I get in these sneezing fits. 8.
Ooh, taking his 8th spot already. Okay, well, we're knocking out the top and the bottom stop early for Dan. Kobe, are you going to do the same?
I am. Dan, I feel like we're thinking a lot of things. Here's my thing, right? If I'm thinking. He won, if I'm right, won his national championship not in the playoffs. So his only playoff game was that game against Oregon. Mm-hmm. If I also remember right, I can't remember now. Was his Heisman the year he won the Natty, or his Heisman's the year he lost to Oregon? Gosh, I wish I
want to say it was Mariota that won the Heisman the first year, right? When they played in the playoffs.
So it was Mariota the year that he beat Jameis.
That he beat Jameis.
Did you say 8?
Yeah, I said 8.
Okay.
So I think 8's a good place for Jameis. He had a good run. They won that BCS against Auburn that year. But as far as playoff, I think his most memorable thing in the playoff is the fact that he did that trip fumble for a touchdown is all I really remember.
Guys, I think this next one, honestly, 2 of these next 3 are going to make this difficult because I think y'all might.
There's 2 names. There's 2 names. And then if I can't remember if one of them was pre-playoff, and I'm praying to God he was pre-playoff. So anyway, keep going.
The next one, JT Barrett.
Oh, damn it. That's 7. It should have been 8.
Not a proverbial stinker, but I guess in terms of putting Jameis at 8, yeah, I guess it is kind of a stinker right there.
You screwed us, dude. You lied. You 100% lied.
My question is, did JT Barrett start a playoff game at quarterback?
He did. They lost to Clemson in 15.
Okay, so after they won it.
So it was Cardell that started the national championship, well, then they won it. And then JT started that next year.
Gotcha.
He screwed us. He said there were no stinkers. That is a stinker. Harrison, you're a damn liar. I'm not gonna
lie. I like him at 7. I mean, like you're saying, to me, it's not. I'd say him and Jameis are the same level of stinker. I mean, they neither won a playoff game. They neither won a Heisman. At least, I guess, again, when we go on the defense of Baker was actively one of the best players in all of college football during his runs into the playoffs.
Hey, in my defense, I could have gave y'all Blake Sims instead, and that's what I kind of meant in terms of stinker.
Damn, Gainesville grad Blake Sims taking just shrapnel from Harry.
I'm sorry, and Jake Locker. I could have given you Jake Locker.
All right, let's get these last 2, and then we can siphon through them.
Last 2. First, JJ McCarthy.
Oh, thank God. Hey, you want this one, Kobe? Because I stole the last one from you.
Go ahead, Dan. It is your turn. I think we agreed on JT Barrett.
6, JJ McCarthy is going at 6 for me.
Dan's gonna be really happy with that pick. My next player.
Yeah,
Kobe.
I'm going with him at 6 as well. He had a good run his last year. I think Michigan congratulations to them. I think that the allegations against them will always linger in the back of my mind, but they won it all, 15-0, so can't knock them.
Last one. Here we go. Trevor Lawrence. Dan's about to party tonight because Dan's list
all right. Hold on.
is damn near perfect.
So let me ask you a question. Was Tim Tebow and Cam Newton pre-playoff?
Yes.
Way pre-playoff.
All right, because I was worried about Cam Newton because
2014 started the playoffs. Cam won his in 10. Tebow won his in 06 and 08.
All right. The one I was worried about was Cam Newton because I was afraid that you were going to say Cam Newton. And obviously, listen, I'm not an Auburn fan and I'm not really even a Cam Newton fan, but heck, that guy might have been the best damn college quarterback ever. All right. So you said Trevor Lawrence?
Absolutely. I think y'all are happy with the list. I'd be curious to see for Kobe, with knowing Trevor Lawrence is on the list, do you put him above Baker and Stetson, or are you overall solid on the list? Obviously, y'all both said Jameis should probably be flipped. I mean, what do y'all say?
I could definitely see putting T-Law over Baker, in my opinion, just because obviously he had an absolute shellacking that freshman season against Alabama. He just beat them to death. I also thought that they were going to be absolutely unbeatable for 3 seasons after he did that as a freshman.
Agreed.
So the fact that he dueled Joe Burrow that year in the Natty as a sophomore, and then he got beat as a junior in the COVID year. Justin Fields of Ohio State got the best of him in the semifinal round. I think that, again, one of those greats that never quite won that Heisman either. Had a weird year his junior year.
Didn't Trevor win it his freshman year?
Not the Heisman.
Yo, I was about to be bugging. I was like, I'm pretty sure Trevor Lawrence had never won a Heisman.
I don't know why I thought he won one.
I was about to have a panic attack right here. I was about to say, how could I have forgotten? I forgot because it never happened, Dan.
Dan, for you with your list,
Dan knows nothing about Clemson.
I think, Dan, I'm with you on pretty much every ranking. Maybe I'd flip JT and Jameis. That was just obviously the circumstances you were dealt. But I think you batted damn near 8 for 8. I thought so, at least.
I would have probably had Trevor below Stetson. I may have had Trevor at 4 and moved Stetson and Baker up. But it's hard. I mean, he did win a national title, so maybe just flip-flop Stetson and Trevor on my list, and then I feel really, really good about him. But I look at Kobe's list, and I'm not upset about his either.
Yeah, I think
both are really similar.
I think from the top down, right? So we'll start with Jameis. Didn't win a playoff game. His one playoff game he played in, it was an embarrassing loss. It was after, again, pretty sure after his Heisman and after his national championship. They're just not that great. I don't think of Jameis Winston when I think of the college football playoffs. JT Barrett, basically the same boat. Don't really think of JT Barrett when I think college football playoffs. JJ McCarthy, I think of a great team around him. And then when I look at some of these names, obviously he was a really good quarterback. He played a lot of games for him, but then I also think about he lost to a TCU team that year as a junior that he had no business losing to that game. And some key interceptions by him cost them that game. Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, I think you can make the argument in a lot of people's minds that they are both generational type quarterbacks to play at Clemson. I think either could have been flipped either way. I think there are some people in their fan base that tell you Deshaun Watson was the better quarterback, and some that tell you Trevor Lawrence. I think there was so much hype around Trevor. The fact that he won one as a freshman and then never could quite get there again kind of knocked them down a peg, versus with Deshaun, it was the other way around. As a sophomore, he was really good, wins ACC. As a junior, they fall up, just short. And then as a senior, he goes out on top. I think that always plays a factor in a lot of people's minds that you get better as you progress versus you win one as a freshman and then you actually get worse. You win one, you lose one, you don't play in one. Kind of rubs people the wrong way. And then, Baker is one of the most entertaining football players I've ever seen in my lifetime. And then Stetson, 4-0, was the MVP of all 4 games. And then Joe Burrow's quite possibly,
speaks for itself.
One of the greatest seasons ever in college football history.
Yeah, it's like I think it's kind of funny that we give Joe Burrow unanimously the first spot when he basically had one good year. Some of these other guys had a good career. He had one good year, but his one good year was just
phenomenal.
He played with the number 1 and number 2 receiver in the NFL right now.
Correct.
Triple Crown winner. It's just unbelievable to think about.
Yeah, that offense was so stupid that NCAA 225 wouldn't even let you put it together.
Gentlemen, I wanted to just throw this out there in regards to, I guess, JT Barrett. I just wanted to read this off because I went in and I found a ranking. It was actually from Saturday Night South. They ranked every single starting quarterback in the CFP era that played the CFP. These were some of the names that I omitted. And that's why I said JT wasn't a stinker. It could have got worse. Cade McNamara, Kelly Bryant, Connor Cook, Desmond Ridder, Dan's favorite quarterback of all time, Jake Browning.
Shout out Connor Cook. That was Michigan State when they got 34 blanked, wasn't it?
Yes.
Nice.
Ian Book. I could have gave you Fromm, Jake Coker, Blake Sims. When I put those names, it's not as much of a stinker. I get it. Of the ones I did, JT Barrett's definitely bottom. Arguably right next to Jameis.
Well, he's definitely should be bottom
of that list.
But I think what saves him from being unanimous bottom is the fact that, again, all of Winston's accolades were pre-college football playoff. Right.
And I think for Barrett also, it's having the context of, hey, he had to play his first playoff game without being the starter beforehand was, I think, something that I guess was another reason why I put him up there. I should have done maybe JT / Cardale Jones, that playoff run themselves together.
I was trying to think of some other names we could have heard. Could have heard Kyler Murray.
Justin Fields would have been another interesting one for y'all, I think.
Justin Fields. Jalen Hurts, 2 separate teams. That would have been a cool, where do you rank him based off of, the run they went on the year they lost the Natty or, the run he had at Oklahoma. It would have been an interesting little argument.
Absolutely. And obviously, everyone remembers, too. I'd be curious to see where we put them. Bryce Young, Mac Jones. Talk about one season wonders. Mac Jones had one. Not like Joe Burrow, but
quick question. Don't need a novel as to why or anything like that. But who do you have as the best quarterback in college football history? Who's yours, Harrison?
Quarterback,
best quarterback in NCAA history.
Shoot. It's between 2 for me. Obviously, you have the career that Vince had, won the championship at Texas, and then you have the one season just elite Joe Burrow season. Those are my top 2.
Kobe?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like you said. I think that the fact that you look back and you look at the lack of talent Cam had around him at Auburn just really kind of tells you that he was a one-man wonder that year. He put the whole team on his back. It's so interesting again because he had probably one of the best seasons, and I think that's the hard thing too. Is he had this unbelievable season in college football on a really bad team, and he willed them to a national championship. Where do you look at careers versus one season wonders? Obviously, he goes on and does it continuously in the NFL. Definitely helps. 2 starters from that championship, not named Cam.
Pretty much everybody unequivocally has Tim Tebow as the greatest college quarterback of all time. I think it's Cam Newton, but the one name that I would tell you who I have always thought was the best quarterback of all time was Tommy Frazier. And you guys have no idea who that is. Enjoy looking it up.
I know who Tommy Frazier is. Played at Nebraska, but I didn't ever watch him.
I would like to know outside of Florida fans, how many people could sit here and argue with me that Tim Tebow is the greatest college football quarterback ever. I don't even know.
I don't even believe that he is, but
I don't even know that he would be like top 5 on those 8 names that we just named off.
This is funny how this has turned into, because Dan spoke to me about a segment he wants to do, and maybe we'll schedule. I wish we scheduled in for today because it would be perfect. Talking about quarterbacks itself.
We've gone long already today.
Yeah. So, and that's gonna be like a 15-minute conversation at least. Anyways,
Kobe's gonna love that segment when we do it. He's gonna love it.
I think you will. And
I'm gonna love it
after the show.
I'm gonna love it because hate runs deep. I'm not gonna, again.
This is not a one person. Like I guess we could tell them what the subject is, right? Because we're just going to talk about it later, but we'll tell you offline. So
don't give out the free segment just yet to the people.
You're gonna have to pay for this, people.
You're gonna have to come pay for it with your views and your comments. And you let us know what you think, as a lot of people did today, and what they thought we did not know. We appreciate you all for being here. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's Kobe Pierce to the bottom, the special teams wonder that is Kobe Pierce over there on multiple really good Georgia teams. One of the more recent former Georgia players in the podcasting space. Obviously, the guys who currently are on the team have a podcast, beat you, but hey, you're out of college. You're a working man. I think your life might be a little bit better than, I don't know. Maybe you still want to be playing these days. Who knows? Being a college student is nice. Over here to my right is Dan Kiley, another special teams person. Was a punter. Kobe was a long snapper. So these two, if subtract 20 years from Dan, they could have been teammates at some point or another. Could have had that long snapper to punter relationship for all we know in a different universe. I'm Harris Serino. Make sure to like, subscribe for more Dan rants. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it. We appreciate you for being here with us tonight. Kobe, Dan, I'm pulling up your cue.
Go Dawg.
Go Dawg.